Who remembers the BJ and Bill show all those years ago on WOLZ? Well, many have said they missed the show, and guess what? They're back. Welcome to the BJ and Bill podcast.
And welcome to BJ and Bill, the podcast. This episode 34, believe it or not. But I like to say it's season 2, episode 10.
Wow. Already up to 10. Wow.
But you know, really, when you look at Netflix,
right?
And, all those other, services that do series.
Yes.
A lot of times they'll only do like 6, 8, 12 at a time.
Yeah, for a season.
That'll be a series.
For a season. That's right. And
so, we could be into season 5 or 6 if we wanted to do it their way.
Yeah, that would make it too confusing. That would make it, I'd never be able to keep track. I'm watching.
What season are you in? Oh, we're in season number 47.
I'm watching the Mandalorian on Disney Channel, and they're in all sequential order, which is great. It's like we're in season 2 or 3, whatever we're in now, but it's like the episodes are in, they carried over from season to season to season. So it's all, I think they do it in chapters, I think is what they're doing. But anyway, makes it easier for me. I watched chapter 23 last week. I'm good to go. Yeah.
Let me do this again. Chapter 34.
34. That's what we would be. Chapter 34. Wow. And then you have to have some clever, catchy kind of tease kind of a name. It's like, what are we going to do this week? It's like special guest week or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. But so that we have a special guest coming up later. We're actually going to try for the first time ever on the BJ and Bill podcast to have another person join us on the podcast. So rather than the 2 of us bantering, it'll be 3 people bantering. So stay tuned for that, folks. It's going to be a crazy ride.
I think we maybe should give some hints, but not any names.
Oh, okay.
Now, BJ and Bill, we originated in Southwest Florida.
Yes.
Our guest lives in Southwest Florida.
Almost goes without saying, but go ahead. Yeah. And
this person knows probably 80% of Southwest Florida.
Oh, you mean in person? Yes.
I don't know if it's in person, but he know. Oh, I said he.
You said he.
Now I gave away another clue when
you
I
gave away another
want
clue.
To.
Yeah.
But he probably knows half the town for sure.
Yes. I would say at least half the town, if not more. And that's okay. That was. Well, I don't want to give away too much. I don't want. We'll just say it's. Now, was this person ever on the BJ and Bill show? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure he was. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
At least by phone, if not live and in studio.
I think he would come into studio because he liked that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, we're giving half. All right, we're giving half of it away at this point. So yeah, but we're.
Let me give another hint.
Oh,
okay, I'll stop with the hints.
Okay.
But I just want to do it so bad. Well, when we get this guest on, we'll discuss years that we came to town.
Oh, okay. Was he in town before you?
I don't know if he was in town before me.
Pretty sure he was.
But, I don't even know. I doubt it. Maybe you know. Was he born and raised in Florida?
Wow. Might have been. Might have been. Wow.
Yeah,
so much to catch up on. All right. I don't think we should be giving away.
Oh, my wife's in there going, I know. I know.
Yeah. Everybody. Yeah, that's fine. All right. It'll be coming up in the second half of the show. So stay tuned for that. It's okay. Stay tuned. So how you been?
Before in the past, I've talked about my blood pressure issues.
Right. Blood pressure. Tell me about it.
And I went to the doctor.
Yes.
Not the heart doctor, but my regular doctor.
Yes.
And they said I need, drinks that, kind of like, Gatorade and things like that gives you more electrolytes and
Right.
hydrates you more.
Okay.
Wow. A lot of those, are sugar filled.
They do make a Gatorade zero sugar. I know that. But yes, a lot of those do have a lot of extra sweeteners in them, sugars and all that.
But
yes.
I have found a new drink that I mean, this is not a commercial, but I have fallen in love with.
Oh, yeah, really?
Body Armor Light.
Body Armor.
I kid you not.
Somehow
that is the name of the product.
Body. Oh, I know. I've heard of it.
Armor Light.
But just the idea of BJ Odom drinking body armor is a little bit out there, isn't it? Isn't it though? I mean, come on. So yeah,
of course, if you live in Florida, I don't know if all Publix are having it right now. You got till Thursday. You can get the smaller bottle, which is the 12-ounce bottle.
Right. He's holding one up, folks.
You can get them for $1 each.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's 10 for $10.
Oh.
And so I got a bunch of different flavors, but I think my favorite flavor so far is tropical coconut.
Ooh. I see he's holding it up. It's kind of a yellowy green looking thing there. Yes.
Now I tried to read the label.
Read the ingredients. Really.
And that might have me a little worried because there are tons of words I cannot even pronounce. That is, part of the formula that I am drinking.
Wow.
But it does have, lots of electrolytes, potassium.
Right.
No sugar added.
That's good.
You've got a bunch of vitamins, antioxidants. So I don't know. I hope I'm not killing myself by drinking this thing, but it is good.
Okay.
And it is what this is not the brand or anything.
Right.
But it's kind of what the doctor ordered.
Okay.
So I'm enjoying it.
Of course, I'm here in Gainesville, which is the town that Gatorade built. So
that's
there's
true.
even There's even a museum, a children's museum called the Cade Museum, which is the name of the professor/doctor who invented Gatorade way back. Dr. something Cade. I don't know what his first name was, but Cade is his name. So the museum is named for him. And there's a whole display. They took his lab out of the building on the campus and put it into this museum. And it's got all the, little show and tell kinds. It's cute. Shows how Gatorade was invented. And it's interesting because, Gatorade was the first of these sports drinks, like the ones you have, all of them, Body Armor and you name it. It's all the same. It's all from Gatorade. Gatorade was the starter of all that. And at first, he went to the University of Florida and said, hey, I have this invention and this stuff, and it'll be great for our football team because we're playing in the summer and sweating. And they said, oh, that's great. And he said, you want to sell it? You want to do, and the university said, and I quote, we're not in the food business. And they turned him down. And he went to somebody else and sold it for millions of dollars or something. I forget. Eventually the university came around and I think is making a few cents on everyone. I don't know the whole history of it, but at first they turned him down, which I thought was classic mistake. Now, but anyway, there you go.
Florida.
Yes.
Florida University, great university.
University of Florida, Gators. Yep.
And they did, like you said, they kind of invented Gatorade.
Yes, they did.
But I'm going to ask you this. They invented something that if you live here in Florida, you think is one of the biggest pains in the ass that there ever was. Especially if you live in the middle portion of the state. It happens twice a year.
I was going to say the 8-lane highway. What? I don't know.
Love bug season.
Wait a minute. What do you mean invented? Love bugs are bugs. What do you mean?
They're a hybrid bug.
Yes.
They were invented at Florida University.
University of Florida.
To eat mosquitoes.
Are you serious?
I'm pretty sure I heard the story correct.
I've never heard that. I really
never have.
I've never heard that they were like an engineered kind of kind of like a kind of like a Terminator
like a
kind of a thing for
or
mosquitoes.
something like that.
Did it work? I mean, are you telling me mosquitoes would be a lot worse if it weren't for love bugs?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
You know me, Paul Harvey was the guy that says, and now you know the rest of the story.
Right. With BJ.
I read the beginning of the story.
Right.
But I never get to the rest of the story.
With BJ, you're still waiting for the rest of the story.
I give you the beginning of the story. It's up to you to go find the rest of the story.
Love bugs. All right, now I am writing it down, and I am going to have to look that up for sure with mosquitoes, because that's crazy. And I'm not crazy. I mean, it's possible. I've not heard that before. So, okay, I get it.
It was either mosquitoes or some bug that gets into the citrus.
Okay, I hear that too. All right, this is me going
maybe it
over to
wasn't
Google.
mosquitoes. It might have been I don't know. It was a bug that now look at now you're gonna now so people will know the rest of the story. I feel that Bill is going to have to find it pretty quickly here on the internet so we can give people the rest of the story.
Yes.
But while he's looking, because I know we have people in all parts of the United States and the world.
And the world.
Who listens to the BJ and Bill podcast.
Yes.
And if you've never been to Florida, it's like twice a year. These little bugs, they attach to each other because they're mating. That's why they're called
love bugs.
Love bugs.
Yes.
And if you're going through Central Florida during what they call love bug season,
yes,
when they're aplenty,
oh my gosh,
it's like going through a snowstorm up north. But yet these are little bugs that just will cover your windshield. And in 10 miles, you need to pull over and wipe down your windshield. And they also eat the paint, I hear, off cars too. So you want to get them off like
the goo in
right
them.
Away.
Yeah, because while BJ says it's like a snowstorm, it's like a black snowstorm.
Oh, yeah. It's not white snow.
And yes, they for some reason, they need better body armor because they go splat on your car immediately. And so anyway, I mean, I hate to do this to you, Mr. Odom, but ABC Action News Tampa Bay, in a story dated April 25th, 2022, so almost exactly a year ago, how love bugs came to Florida, and no, they weren't created to eat mosquitoes. That is the exact headline.
Oh, that's the exact headline?
That is the exact headline of the story. Tampa Bay, they're on your car, on your house, landing on your windshield every time you stop. Love bug season is here. So obviously this is, again, from a year ago exactly, right? They're harmless, usually found in pairs, and so annoying, most think a more fitting name would be hate bugs. How did they get here? According to the Crowley Museum and Nature Center, love bugs migrated to the United States from Central America in the 1920s and to Florida in the 1940s. Their reproduction is successful for two reasons. First, not many predators are interested in eating them. No kidding. Additionally, their larvae break down fallen and dead vegetation. Oh, they eat bugs. Are they a product of an experiment? A rumor that the bugs were created by the University of Florida as an experiment to control mosquitoes has persisted for years. However, it is not true.
BJ Odom does not know the rest of the story. He knew the rumor.
So sorry. I'm so sorry to have to break that to you, but
I am going to be so depressed the rest of the day. I'm not even going to be able to live.
Just remember, as the good book says, Mr. Odom, that the truth will set you free. It will occasionally cheese you off.
I thought I knew something that was truly amazing. And, here people, I was one of those people, and there's probably more that's going, that damn university, that Florida university, they invented these damn bugs and it covers my windshield whenever I drive down the road.
You have been fact-checked.
Oh, man.
You have been social media fact-checked. And you have found
when did
to
you
be
say the date
wrong.
Of that article was?
I'm sorry?
When was the date of that article?
Almost exactly a year ago. Like I said, April 25th, 2022.
Oh, you know what that means?
What?
Love bug season is just around the corner. It'll be starting at any time now.
Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. So as we record this, you're right around the 25th. So now that's a good, I mean, it's not a good question. I've been here through what would normally be a couple of love bug seasons, and I don't remember them being really bad here in Gainesville. Maybe that's a South Florida. Maybe they like it warmer. Maybe that's a South Florida thing.
It might be, because I remember when you and I, though, we lived in Southwest Florida.
Yeah.
You would see some, but I don't know if it's because of the ocean breeze or what.
Right.
But you would not see that many. We knew what they were.
Right.
But I mean, and they were a little annoying. But I moved out to Arcadia.
Right.
Worked at 106.9 The Bull there.
Right.
I tell you, if anybody has ever went down Highway 17 between Arcadia and Zolfo Springs, there was a little radio station right there on 17. You right there by the Bluffs Golf Course.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I would go to lunch. I swear, during love bug season, I had a white car, and I would either go to Arcadia,
right,
or I'd go to Zolfo Springs, watch Hula to grab some lunch and come back to the radio station.
Right.
And my car would be complete, and it was a white car, by the way.
Of course.
My car would be completely black by the time I went to lunch and got back, because I had hit that many love bugs. That's where I really, 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 really learned about love bugs and how annoying they can be.
I remember I drove across the state once. I was working for, I think it was after BJ and Bill time, but it was like I was working for a company that did school computers. We were IT people for computers in schools. And I drove from Lehigh Acres across to Fort Lauderdale or something. And rather than going down to Alligator Alley or I-75, I went across, past the lake and all of that. Was that 17 that went across? I forget. Anyway, whatever it was. That
would have been Highway 80, I believe.
80, probably. Went across the state. And I remember I had to stop 2 or 3 times at a gas station, not for gas, but just to get out and wash the bugs off the windshield in the front of the car so you could see where you were going. It was so bad. It was like a Hitchcock movie. It was crazy.
Now, it only lasts 2 or 3 weeks, but for those 2 or 3 weeks, it's hell. And it's twice a week. I mean, twice a year, too, that love bug season gets.
Well, maybe we should call up the University of Florida and say, what can you do to get rid of these doggone things? But
yeah, you didn't invent them, but maybe you can invent how to get rid of them.
Little help here. But the problem is not the problem, but what always happens, it is the classic plot of every bad horror movie ever. It's like, oh, we have this real problem with love bugs, so we've invented this critter that we've genetically modified this bird that's going to go out and eat these love bugs, and the birds eat the love bugs, and then they turn into monsters, and then they start eating people, and it's just whatever. So yes, there's a horror get Stephen King on the line. Somewhere there's a horror movie waiting to happen with love bugs. Absolutely.
This weekend at the Crown Theater.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now you've got me curious, and I'm going to be a little bit mindful. At least now that it's in my mind, it's in my head. I'm going to be thinking about love bugs, and because are they bad where you are, or do you have experience with that?
I don't know yet, because we haven't went through a season here, but I will tell you, they were, just the worst in Arcadia.
Yes.
And then when I moved up to Winter Haven, they were all so bad there. And of course, we travel 17 when we go back to Fort Myers.
Right.
So, we got killed by them if, we were going to Fort Myers during that time. But now Claremont and the Orlando area, not sure yet, but I should be finding out in the next few days.
Yeah, in the next couple of weeks for sure. So I wonder if it's a function. Now you got me curious about it, doggone it. And when I get my curiosity into something, I'm going to, I got to spend at least a few minutes on Google or YouTube or something. You're right. When we were living closer to the coast, Fort Myers and Cape Coral and Naples and all that, not a big deal. But like you said, might have been the ocean breeze, or maybe they don't like the salt water or something like that. But if you're in the center of the state, yeah, they're crazy bad. And that might also be the vegetation or something, or the plants that they like to nibble on. Maybe there's more plant. So I don't know. Now, here where I live, here in Gainesville, I mean, I have trees and shrubs and all kinds of stuff literally right across the parking lot from me. And there's, it's the swamp. I mean, we call it the swamp for a reason. There's a big swamp right down the road. So now I'm going to have to, now I'm curious. Now I got my eyes open. All right. Thanks for that.
Well, let me tell you this, Bill Stevens. The main thing to do is just go out and wear white, because white attracts them also. Not only do white cars attract them, but
white
you
clothes.
can wear a white shirt and all of a sudden, get these things off of me.
I think you just notice them more. I think that, but I could be wrong, but I think you just notice them more. That's okay.
Well, we'll see here, because like I said, folks, if you live here in Florida, by the time this podcast drops, it could be love bug season.
Love bug season. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Enough about love bugs. That's fine. Great. Wonderful. Terrific. Yay. Woo.
My
joys
good buddy
of living in Florida.
My good buddy, David Say had the best joke about that. Love bugs, because basically what they do, they mate.
That's it.
So when you hit them with your car, you're hitting two at a time.
Yes, you are.
Because they're always mating. But what they will do, they will mate, and the lady will hang on to her guy and not let him go until he dies.
Right.
His joke used to always be, it's like going to the mall with a wife. She'll drag you around till you die.
Does anybody go to the
David
mall
Say.
anymore? Does anybody even go to the mall anymore?
Well, I think they still call, the outdoor shopping centers.
Yes. Yeah.
At least here in Florida.
Yes.
Again, we're talking to people across the world, but we used to have these places that were just like one big building, and it would be called a mall. And there are still malls, but it seems like most malls have pretty much in Florida has kind of went out of business.
Right.
And what you have now are these shopping centers where they might take up 20 acres, 30 acres.
Huge.
Yeah. And the stores are all attached kind of.
Right.
They have different streets and stuff like that.
Right.
But they're not all under one roof where you could walk in and you could go to like 50 stores and then leave and you never went outside until you went to your car.
Right. St. John's Town Center up in Jacksonville is like that. It's an outdoors. Well, and we had a smaller version in Florida in Estero Town Center. And what was the other one?
Gulf Coast Town Center.
Gulf Coast Town Center.
And also Coconut
Point. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, Coconut. Both of those outdoorsy, kind of like a street scene, kind of very cool. Except it's Florida, and it's like it's hot and sweaty, and the one in Jacksonville is St. John's Town Center. Is if you took the two of them in Fort Myers and you put them together and then you doubled it, that's the one in Jacksonville. It's huge, but very cool, very fun. I mean, there's the Apple store there. There's the Tesla store right there. It's fun. It's cool, but you're outside still. And if it's hot now, I was in, Sarasota up to just a year or so ago, and they opened a monster indoor real mall called University Town Center in Sarasota. And it's 2 levels, all indoors. I mean, they're building a lot around the outside, but the centerpiece of the whole development is the mall itself. And I'd be curious to know if of course it's Sarasota and there's a little bit of money in that town. And, they had a Saks Fifth Avenue and they had a Nordstrom and they, all the high end stuff. But I would be curious to know if they're actually still making any money or if it's still worth, I don't know. It's, Amazon has changed everything. So I don't know.
And you still have the Mall of America.
Mall of America. Yeah.
Who would want to live in Minneapolis, and especially in the wintertime when the winter is like 9 months long.
Yeah.
But they have the Mall of America where there's rides even inside the mall. And I'm not talking like the little pony that goes around in a circle.
No.
I'm talking about roller coasters.
Don't they have like a water
rides,
park?
all that stuff.
They have a water park inside too, I think, don't they? Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Oh my God, it's insane. Now that's a tourist destination. I mean, I don't know why I would ever want to go to Minnesota, like you said, just to visit a mall, but it might be fun to, take the family. If I'm passing by, why would I be passing by Minnesota? I don't know. But anyway, have you ever been there?
Canada.
You brought it up. Have you been there?
No.
No, I haven't either. If anybody's been to the Mall of America, let us know how that worked out for
I
you
have
there.
friends that, well, they're going to be moving back to Florida, I think, before long. But they followed their children
Right.
to Minnesota.
Woo.
Their great grandparents, they love their grandkids. They're with their grandkids half the time.
Right.
But they had to, in order to do all that, they had to move to Minnesota.
Oh man, that's brutal. I mean,
And
that's
now,
just.
yeah, their kids are going to move again. But it sounds like. But I told my wife I've got to see it to believe it. But they're talking about, we've had enough of this.
Right.
I mean, we get pictures from her like every other day. More snow on the ground.
More snow. More snow.
I think we just got one like a week ago. Yes, it's snowing again, people.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So they're ready.
Oh yeah.
They're ready to come back to Florida.
I can imagine moving somewhere else from Florida, but it would never be anywhere that it's snowed. Never.
Now, I've told this story many times when I first, got married to my wife.
Yeah.
Her brother lived in, Fort Myers.
Right.
Her parents lived in Fort Myers. Her sister lived across the state, or West Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So all her family was like kind of in one little area. So every year for Christmas, we'd all get together.
Right.
Of course, I had my kids and my family.
Sure.
But as far as my brother and my niece and all my Indiana family,
Right.
they were never around. So I always told my wife, I says, all right, next year we're going to have an Odom Christmas, by golly. We're going back to Indiana.
Uh-huh.
And we're having Christmas with my family.
Uh-huh.
So we did that one Christmas. It snowed.
Uh-huh.
And it was cold.
Uh-huh.
And it snowed some more.
Uh-huh.
And it was cold. And by the third day we were there, we might have been celebrating Christmas. But I said, we will never, ever have another Odom Christmas. It's not going to happen.
I hear because I get it. I totally get it. When back in married days, back when Bill was married and all that, we were the only family in Florida. So if we were going to see anybody for Christmas, it was a trip back to Ohio. And the good news, I mean, if there was good news for going to Ohio, that her family and my family only lived less than an hour apart. Mine was on the west side of Cleveland and hers was in North Canton and all of that. So, and it was perfect because her family was a Christmas Eve family. So we would go north, we would stay with her parents and, big dinner Christmas Eve, go to church Christmas Eve, even unwrap presents on Christmas Eve, sleep in, get up, have breakfast, drive to my family, Cleveland, do the same thing all over again, unwrap presents, big dinner, go to church, so you could, but again, it's like you're going to Cleveland in the end of December and good luck getting flights in and out and hotels and rent-a-cars and driving in the snow, which you never do. And yeah, but we did it. We were good. We were good kids. We did it. So there you go. Yeah. Well, thankfully, no more, thankfully.
Well, are we about ready?
We are. We're
ready to take a break and bring on our mystery guest.
We are going to do that. I'm going to go refill my coffee. BJ is going to go refill his body armor.
Oh, don't forget Body Armor Light.
Body Armor Light.
And light spelling Lyte.
Oh, Lyte. You're so clever. Some marketing department. Good for you.
I don't know what it is with me, but we're talking about and I know we got our guest coming on.
Right.
But Body Armor Light, I drink now. I just started drinking that like maybe within the last week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I've been drinking Ensure Max at night.
Wow.
Kind of like a protein drink.
Have you read the sugar content on that one?
Oh, no. I get the Max, and the Max has 1 gram of sugar.
Okay.
So let me tell you this, Bill Stevens.
Yes, Mr. Liquid Diet.
You will not recognize me in another few months. I'm going to be so buff. You're going to be so jealous. You won't be able to handle it, my friend.
BJ goes from no pack to 6-pack. I look forward to you. Not really, but I look forward to you getting into fabulous shape. I do. That's good for you. That's a worthwhile goal for sure. For sure. So good for you, Mr. Odom. That's awesome. All right. We are going to take a break, go refill your drink of choice, and we will be right back. And welcome back. I'm Bill Stevens. That's BJ Odom. This is the BJ and Bill podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, please do so you can reach out via email, bjandbillpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you have to spell out the A-N-D, bjandbillpodcast@gmail.com. Or, as so many of you have already done, just look us up on the Facebook page by the same name, BJ and Bill Podcast.
All right. We teased that we have this special guest coming on. I accidentally said he, but we said he knows half the town of Southwest Florida. We gave some other hints. I want to give one more because, we did talk about the University of Florida. And guess what? This guy came from Florida University. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the microphone, our old friend, Ted Fitzgeorge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's okay. Can we quit now?
Yeah, we're done. Thanks for coming.
When you're on top, that's fantastic. Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
We are wonderful. You're live in Cape Coral now, yes?
We barely, but yes, we are. And the he thing with the way pronouns go these days, that really doesn't give anything away, does it?
I guess not. No.
I hadn't thought of that. Hadn't really. Honestly, we've kind of been avoiding that.
My Zoom screen, and apparently Bill is going by the name Lori.
Yeah, well, that's an old friend who I'm using her
scanning her internet, aren't you? Uh-huh.
No, I'm using her Zoom account though. So yeah.
So podcasting pays really well, huh?
Oh, terrific. You'll have to talk
to
our
new yacht coming next week.
You'll have to talk to our boss, BJ's son, about
BJ's son Gentry. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I see you guys. It brings back so many memories. I have to tell you. And BJ and I go back to, I think, your days when you first got to town and went on the air. And I was at Orange 107 FM, and we used to talk to each other on the phone and lay things out for one another, and sometimes get to play the very same song at the very same time just to piss off the people that were listening to our two stations.
Right. We were trying to do the timeline. When did you're not originally born, raised Fort Myers, but when did you get there?
No, I was actually hatched.
Right.
And I was not born. I was hatched.
Like most gators.
I was born in Trenton, New Jersey. I wanted to be close to my mother, and left there at about 11 years old to go to Northern Virginia. I lived in Fairfax County. I went to my freshman year in high school. I went to Jeb Stuart High School, which apparently some folks have found offensive, and it is now called Justice High School.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's no longer
Justin Timberlake.
No longer called, Justin Timberlake, Justice Timberlake, no longer called Jeb Stuart High School. And then I moved to Hollywood, Florida, and went to Hollywood Hills High School before heading off to Gainesville to matriculate, as they say, at the University of Florida.
Just up the road.
I know, Bill, I'm very envious because I do know that that's where you are now.
Yes.
And I know you talked about this on your very first podcast. I was up for the Kentucky game, and we were tailgating up on the fourth floor of the parking garage, where we tailgate right across the street from the stadium. And we tried to get together.
Yeah.
And we were not able to make it. And I thought for sure I would be back up for the LSU game. And in the meantime, a little something called Ian hit us down here, took dead aim on Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, Captiva, and unfortunately Southwest Cape Coral. And my life has changed for the last 7 months, but we are getting closer and closer to being back to normal, and happy to be back and talking to you guys.
So
we were out on Fort Myers Beach
about
2 or 3 weeks ago, And
Thanks for the
the
call.
devastation still just blew my mind. You know, it'd been like it had been 6 months.
Right.
And it still blew my mind going out to Fort Myers Beach. You see a lot of the Gulf of Mexico where you never saw it before.
Never saw it before. There's video of the Fort Myers Beach Hooters lifting up off the pilings that it was on and floating down Estero Boulevard.
Wow.
And it just never ends for Fort Myers Beach. I don't know if you guys saw this, but over the weekend, it was a 6 or 7 story condo just north of where the Fort Myers Beach Pier used to be, between the pier and the Pink Shell for some geography for the folks familiar with it. It caught fire.
Wow.
And they had video, folks, of course, because nothing gets done without people taking pictures of it with their phones and their cameras and stuff. And it was all over social media down here. The Fort Myers Beach Fire Department got out there and got it taken care of in a hurry. But if you look for it, you could find it. And the flames at the top of the building, I don't know if it was roofing material. I heard maybe an electrical fire. But you just look, if you're Fort Myers Beach and go, what else can go wrong? Well, don't wonder, because there's still plenty more that can go wrong, apparently.
Yeah, wow. I saw that video from Peter Bush. There was one of the news people there in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, and one of the things I like best about Peter had a dog. His dog sadly has since passed away, but his dog's name was Anheuser. So the dog was Anheuser Busch.
Oh man.
Probably fed him a little Bud Light, and he used to be a male dog. Now he's a bitch.
Now he's a all right, everybody. Ted Fitzgeorge, everybody. We knew it was going to be exciting. I'm just curious though about how did your house? You said Cape Coral took a shot from the storm too. I mean, how is your place?
We just got back in a week ago yesterday.
Oh wow!
It's been almost 7 months. We rode the storm out in the house, and I'll tell you why in just a bit. I'm happy that we did. We've heard for like I said, I've been in Florida since I was 14. Heard all my life about storm surge. Always thought it was just an old wives' tale or an urban legend until September 28th, when we got a full view of storm surge. My canal in the backyard flooded through the back of my house. The canal across the street came across the street and flooded through the front of our house.
Wow.
And they sort of met in the middle. We got a foot of water in the garage, and we got another 6 to 8 inches throughout the entire house, and had to go through and take out 2 feet of drywall, get all the stuff out. First thing we had to do the next day was rip out all the carpet and padding that we had. I will never have carpet again. We took all that out because you don't want that molding up. We got one of the remediation companies. They came from everywhere. We were well set up. Our governor did a great job with the electric company and companies, I should say, the linemen that came from around the country. He had the trucks lined up on the interstate ready to come in when it was safe to come in. And they came in from all over the place. And it took a while to get power back. But while the storm happened, we sat in our house, we watched the water come in, we prayed that it was going to go out. But shortly after the storm started to hit full bore, we heard a loud noise out in the front. And I sort of went to the front door, pushed it open a little bit, and peeked my head out and took a look around to see what it was. And I couldn't really see anything. Pulled the door closed behind me as I came back in, and my phone rang. We still had phone service. And it was the next door neighbor. Our next door neighbors are Pat's 85, her husband Jerry was 90 and in a wheelchair. Wow. And they had their daughter with them. Michelle's probably about 60 or so, 58, 60 years old. Her daughter, their dog. And when I answered the phone, it was the daughter, it was Michelle. And she's basically in tears. Oh my God, Ted, we just lost our roof. That was the noise that I heard. It turns out that it ripped, the storm ripped their entire lanai off the back of their house, lifted it over the house, and deposited the lanai on the front lawn of the house next door to me. When I poked my head out, I couldn't see quite far enough to see that that's what it was. But when it took the lanai, it left a big gaping hole in the actual roof, and the water was pouring in. Well, Jerry's in a wheelchair. And I said, are Pat and Jerry there with you? And she said, they are. I said, bring him to the garage door off on the side. I'm coming out to get him. And went out during the storm and picked him up in the wheelchair. and carried him over to the house and brought his wife and brought Michelle and the daughter and the dog. And they ended up in our house with us. The water still hadn't started to come in, but they were here to watch the water come in from both sides. We prayed that the water would recede as quickly as it entered, and we were very lucky because it did. We've got other friends who ended up with 8 feet of water in their house and had their houses completely destroyed. And BJ, you're right when you say that you were on Fort Myers Beach and you're amazed to still see the devastation. Kathleen and I were out yesterday, and we're still picking up little odds and ends to put in the house and stuff. And, what furniture are we going to keep and what are we not going to keep? And we rode down to, if you're familiar with it, I know you guys are familiar with the Island Park area. We've got friends down there that they did a story on the front page of the news press about them. Bruce used to own Beefsteak Charlie's on 41, and I used to manage the store for him at night. And Bruce and Peggy they were two of the unfortunate ones. A lot of water down there. Estero Bay and whatnot is down in that general area. They got 8 feet of water in their house. They had to go through the kitchen window. They tethered themselves to the porch. They had inner tubes and they tethered themselves to the porch. And the guy from Mike's Marina came down, not down the canal. He came down the street on a boat and rescued them from their front porch and took them. And Bruce, I'm sure you guys remember, he was like 6'8", 300 pounds. And Peggy's they're in the paper they referred to them as grandparents, which kind of struck me like, oh my God, we are getting old, because I don't think any of us is being old enough to do that. But BJ, you are of course a grandfather. I know your grandchildren; they're awesome.
Yes. And now let me ask you a question, Ted.
Sure.
Because I talked to my son. I've been, we all went through Charlie. Bill was still there. We were still on the air during Charlie. And my son during Charlie actually went out and filmed in his front yard because he thought it was exciting to do. And I mean, we were far enough off the coast. I never worried about hurricanes, and neither did my son. But after this last one, he lived through it. I didn't. I was up here in Central Florida, which was nice, but he lived through it. I said, we both were, I guess, just both. We didn't think that was ever going to happen. We were not afraid of hurricanes.
None of us were, because well, part of it is too. It's like the boy who cried wolf, right? I mean, you hear about it time after time after time. Be ready, be ready, be ready. Oh, here it comes. This could be the big one, and then it skirts up the coast and maybe hits Tampa Bay, or it goes a little south, or it veers off before it even hits land here, or by the time it hits, or it comes through the Caribbean and it's gone over land and it's worn itself out. This one did not wear itself out. This one hit us dead on. My wife said, from now on, even if they say tropical storm, we're going somewhere else. We're not going to stay. We're not going to stay here. We all have newfound respect for Mother Nature after what we saw happen here during the course of Ian and its aftermath. And its aftermath was kind of fun. We had, of course, we were 2 weeks without power, pretty much the entire area. And it didn't seem that bad, at the time. 2 weeks is nothing compared to, I was here for Andrew. Not, Andrew didn't hit us here, but I was in Florida and Andrew went through Homestead. And in Homestead, they were without power for 4 months. 4 months without power. So we had our power back within 2 weeks. We also were without water for nearly a week, the entire area. So we didn't have water. That might have been worse than no power, because you were around an awful lot of people that hadn't showered in 4 or 5 days. And Bill, you've worked with BJ a long time in the same room, so I don't have to tell you how bad that can be.
Pretty bad. Not to mention no flushing toilets, right?
And and then we had one friend who got her water back first, and she sent us out a text message, and she said, I've got water. Here's the code to the front door. You guys just go ahead and knock yourselves out. If you need to run in, take a shower, clean up behind yourselves. There was a line at her house, people going in to take showers. It was entertaining. So it was the epilogue to the story about my next door neighbors, sadly. That was the day of the storm where they came over and rode it out with us. And the next morning, I went out to look and see, you go out to kind of check the damages and see what kind of damage there is and what you've got to clean up. And I thought I would see their lanai on their front porch or their front lawn. It was 8 houses down the street. And I came back in and I said, I've got good news for you. I said, that lanai is no longer your problem. You you don't have to clean it up because somebody 8 houses down is going to have to do it. 3 days later, the daughter wrecked the family had one car. The daughter wrecked their car and totaled it. So no car, no house. And a week after that, Jerry, the guy in the wheelchair, passed away at 90 years old.
Oh, wow.
So my next door neighbor lost her house, her car, and her husband in the span of about 10 days. So we were all things considered very fortunate to just lose stuff and lose time in our home. And speaking of Andrew, my niece now lives in Lauderdale. She married a guy who is from that side of the state, and as a boy lived through Andrew. And he told me, he said, you're going to love it when you get done because you're going to have a brand new house that insurance is going to pay for. It's going to be tough while you have to figure out where you're going to live and what you're going to do while you renovate your house. And we had moved in here about 3 years ago, sold our house in Fort Myers and moved in here about 3 years ago. But we were going to remodel anyway, but we were going to do it one room at a time, do it ourselves. And knock out a wall and take out some soffits and take out the pantry and move things around. Well, Ian saw to it that it had to be done all at once, and doing it all at once was above my pay grade. There was just no chance that I was going to be able to do the things that needed to be done. And getting contractors was tough too, because everybody was in the same boat. You went up and down the street. BJ, you talked about the beach. I live on a street that's in a series of canals that just runs down the street off of Skyline, if you're familiar with Cape Coral, Southwest Cape Coral. And you look down the street and everybody's lives were out on the front porch, out on the front curb, waiting for the trash trucks to come by and pick their lives up and pretty much toss them in the garbage. And it was like that everywhere. We've been out on boats and we've gone out to sea, and there are still boats that are upside down in the water and up on the ground. There was a boat on Cape Coral Parkway. It was about a 30-foot Donzi, and it came up out of the canal and was on the side of the road right alongside Cape Coral Parkway, and it had to be there for almost a month. And every time you drove down Cape Coral Parkway, you looked over and saw this 30-foot boat that was just sitting there. And there are still boats like that downtown, the marina, down in the River District. I've got a friend that was on a liveaboard down there, and it was Saturday before I was able to actually get through to him on the phone, and it was only about 15 seconds before we lost the phone connection. But it was long enough to hear his voice and know that he at least had gotten off the boat before the storm came by. And he told, I've seen him since then. And he told me afterwards, he said, I got off the boat because of my dog. He said, if I didn't have a dog, I probably would have stayed on the boat and I probably wouldn't be here right now. His boat is on the bottom of the Caloosahatchee River.
Now, let me ask you this, because I don't know if you still are. I know, you were in real estate. You've, been with title companies. Is real estate, is a lot of people left the area, or are people trying to rebuild? There's
a little bit of everything, BJ. People have left the area, people are staying and rebuilding, and people are coming from all over the country to live here. There's deals here. I am still selling real estate. I'm looking forward to not having to work on my own real estate now that we're back in the house and pretty much back to normal. I've still got a lot of stuff to get out of the garage and hang pictures and different things like that. But we have been, the last 3 or 4 years after COVID. Now, of course, when COVID hit and people didn't know what was going on, that first month, everything just shut down because nobody wanted people in their house. Nobody wanted to go in other people's houses. They didn't know what was happening. But we were blessed that we were in a state that got back to normal a whole lot more quickly than many other states did. And the next 2 years were and I've been selling real estate since 1978. When I was in radio at night, I was selling real estate for Lehigh Corporation during the day. And so over 40 years now, 45 years now, I've been in the business. And I had the 2 best years I've ever had in those 2 years after everything settled down after the COVID strike. So I expect, and what's going to happen too, Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel and Captiva will never look again like it looked prior to September 28th, because they're going to have to rebuild to all the new codes and a lot of that old world charm that we had. And it's not just Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel and Captiva, it's Matlacha and Pine Island You go out there and see, you remember all the art galleries on Pine Island Road as you got into Matlacha and Pine Island, those are gone. And when they rebuild, they're going to have to rebuild up high with concrete block, and it will look completely. I'm afraid, I grew up in Hollywood. It's going to look like Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale, Miami Beach. It almost has to, because who's going to insure a rickety old building if somebody wants to put it back together like that? But we are seeing restaurants even on Sanibel and Captiva and Fort Myers Beach and Pine Island and Matlacha. They're all opening up. A lot of those have rebuilt and reopened. A lot of them are in the process, and hopefully in the next 3 to 4 to 6 months, we'll be ready to go again. And it's going to be a new normal, but we're getting back to normal. And I want to thank my friends. I sell now for Schooner Bay Realty here in Cape Coral, and we've got a building company as well. And when all of this happened, we sat down and decided we needed to get into the remodel business. And I volunteered our house to be the first of many that we can remodel. Of course, now when they're using it in their advertising, I tell them I've still got my SAG card, and I expect to get paid every time that video runs somewhere. I'll let you know how that works out. But they have been spectacular. They've done a great job. They were all over it. And as hard as it seems to believe that we're ahead of the curve, 7 months later, 6.5 months later, you drive up and down the streets, we are ahead of the curve 6.5 months later. The fact that we can be back
before we run out of time, I want to change gears here too.
Sure.
We were actually talking about this before we went on the air.
Right.
Who was in Fort Myers first? What
did
year?
you get?
I came to town 81 or 82.
I got to Fort Myers I started coming to Fort Myers in 74 when I would come back down here from college, and worked as a lifeguard at Mirror Lakes Pool in the summer of 75 and 76.
Wow.
So I was here in 74, and I was here full time beginning in 1978.
What year did you what year did you hit the orange?
It wasn't
was
the
that
orange.
Your first radio job?
It was 107 Gold. It was my first radio job, and we converted to Album Rock and became Orange 107 FM. And I was there from 78 to 83. And I've heard you talk about consultants. I was never a real big fan of consultants either. And the beauty of that radio station and radio back in those days is my shift was 7 until midnight. And I could go on from 7 to midnight and play whatever I wanted to play.
Right.
And I did. And,
right.
Two turntables, stacks of albums. If I didn't have anything I like, I took my albums in. And I played, on Sirius XM now, you've got deep cuts. Well, that's what I did. Long before it was called deep cuts. I just went in and you didn't hear the same songs that you heard. And then they brought in a consultant from Connecticut that, knew how to run a radio station and told us that Leonard Skinner was not rock and roll. And maybe in Connecticut, that's true. But in Florida, Leonard Skinner is still rock and roll.
Right.
It's old rock and roll. It's classic rock and roll, but it's still rock and roll. So full-time 78 to 83. Then I decided when they started telling me what I was going to have to play on the air, I got out of it. And I had a friend named Terry Fisher, who was the general manager of Bennigan's. And we used to play golf together. And he said, "What are you doing with your nights now?" I said, "I'm kind of enjoying them. I can actually go out before midnight, right? I could go out at 7 o'clock and do some happy hours and whatnot." And he said, "Boy, I'd love to get you on the bar at the restaurant." I said, "Well, I have no experience." He said, "We can teach you." And so I ended up at Bennigan's as a bartender from 83 till about 85.
Wow.
And,
I would have been in that place in that time.
You probably were. They were 8 deep all the way around the bar every night. And it was a license to print money.
Right.
Because there was not much else around back then. There was the Brown Derby around the corner.
Right.
We left that to the old folks early on. They would line their pockets with the plastic baggies and go in for the free food and stuff the extra free food in their pockets and go home and have that for the rest of the week. So, but that was also, the Brown Derby was also where I got to dance with Victoria Principal one night. And it was the summer everybody was wondering who shot JR on the old Dallas show. And I'm standing at my usual table at the Brown Derby back in the corner watching, the goings on and whatever else it was we were doing in there back then. I'm not allowed to do that anymore. And And I'm with my friend Bo, and this girl just kind of blows by us, and he looks at me. He says, "I'm pretty sure that was Victoria Principal." And I said, "I'm pretty sure we're still in Fort Myers, so no." And she went right up on stage, and she turned around and she hugged the woman that was singing with the band, and she turned around and damned if it wasn't Victoria Principal. And it turned out that the woman on stage with the band was Kim Principal, Victoria's sister.
Oh, that's cool.
We watched. She went back. The band took a break, and she went down and sat with her sister. And all these guys walking up to her and asking for autographs and stuff. And Bo said, "Well, you're going to go talk to her, right?" I said, "Well, of course I am."
Of course.
I went
Hello.
I said, "Hey,
Hello.
When the band goes back up, would you like to dance?" She said, "I would love to dance." She said, "I'm really getting kind of tired of people coming over and asking for my autograph." I said, "I don't need your autograph. I want to be able to tell people for the rest of my life that I danced with Victoria Principal at the Brown Derby in Fort Myers. And here we are 40 years later, and I'm telling you."
There you go. The story goes on.
That's it.
And of course, we knew each other before that, but the night the wife and I really kind of connected was the Brown Derby.
Yeah. The Brown Derby connected a lot of people. You guys were at my wedding.
Yep.
As my
guest. That was
guests.
the first one. Actually, your wedding was the first event that I think I attended after my heart transplant.
It was 2004. When was your transplant?
2003.
Yeah, it was November of 2004. You and your wife were there. Bill and your wife were there. Bill introduced the wedding party.
I was the announcer for it. Yes.
Yep. He introduced the wedding party as they came in with the notes that I had written about them and brought them in. That was fun.
Yep.
Gentry was our DJ. So BJ, your son was our disc jockey.
How old was he back then? He wasn't that old.
Well, what year was he born?
You got to ask me that, don't you? 78, I believe.
It's easier than knowing how old he is. You just have to know how to do math.
That's where you lose him. That's where you lose him, Ted.
Well, I already got one story messed up because I know you went to the University of Florida. I thought love bugs was invented there, and Bill proved it wrong by checking the internet.
Well, and Abraham Lincoln says, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet."
I've seen that meme 100 times. That's right. So
did they or did they not invent love bugs?
No,
at the university, at Florida University. No, you read that on the internet, Bill. You don't.
I read it from what I would consider to be a credible source, which was a Tampa Bay television station with a real reporter.
Did you
heard it from a drunk, and
I did not, but
all you really need to know is Colin Cowherd used to work at a Tampa Bay radio or television station.
Well, there you go. That answers it right there. So there you go.
So what year did you come to town,
the wedding
Bill?
thing was great. The wedding thing was great because we had a good time. We really did. Yeah. That was a great wedding. My theory, and we had my friends Hank and Bonnie played live music that day as well. So we had a band, and we had Gentry as our DJ, and for our first song together. Gentry and I had lined it up in advance. I took Kathleen in my arms, and Gentry introduced us for the first time as husband and wife. Please bring them up to the floor for their first dance. And as the music started, you heard Paul Anka sing, "Having My Baby." And I was about 8 feet from my mother-in-law, and God rest her soul. I miss her every day. She's been gone almost 8 years. And I was about 8 feet away from her, and her eyes just got as big as saucers. And I pointed at her, and you guys both met Jane. I know Bill knew Jane fairly well.
Yep.
And I looked and I said, "Gotcha." Kathleen said, "Yeah, that was very funny. I spent the next 4 hours explaining to people that I wasn't pregnant." So
there you go. All good. So what? Oh, BJ, you were asking when he got?
When did you come to town?
When did I come to town?
That's because he was there before me. I think you were there actually before me too, because you worked at Super Q.
Jan Cantor, where are you today?
Hey, you know what? And Bill, I actually filled in at Super Q as well. Remember, they operated out of the trailer, and before the building, they had a trailer in the back, and they had cinder blocks for stairs, and you actually had to step up on the cinder block to get up in the trailer.
Right. And honestly, I missed the trailer was still on the property, but when I got there, they had actually just then moved into the new building. I probably got there in 81.
Yeah.
I probably got there
which is now the old building, and it's still there, and they're still operating out of it. And Gentry, I've actually gone down and seen Gentry in that building. Gentry, I think during his Beasley days, worked out of that building as well.
Right. He actually worked for the Beasleys more than once. Like, I think.
Right? Oh yeah.
He was almost like Joe Scott. I think he went into that building, in and out of that building 3 to 4 or 5 times.
It's funny you bring that up. A lot of folks around here know me from my sports announcing days, which are ongoing. For 10 years, I did Fort Myers Miracle Games, and I went through a bunch of different general managers because people came and people went. Right. Everybody stayed within the group. It was owned by the Gold Claim Group, and one of the owners was Bill Veck. I'm sorry, was Mike Veck.
Yep.
Bill's son. And Mike was great because he understood minor league baseball, and you could do and say anything you wanted. And my deal with him was, I'll do the games for you, but I come out here to enjoy myself, watch baseball, have a few beers. So I'll do it, but I want to be able to drink beer while I work. So I was like Harry Carey up there. We had the fishing net that I hung over the out the window over the net, and I'd get like 50 baseballs a summer. As they came rolling up the net, I'd scoop them, and the kids would run over, and I'd drop the ball down to the kids and whatnot. And when they first started doing Thirsty Thursdays out there, instead of half-price beer, it was buy one beer, get one free. And I would leave tickets for my friends to come out. And they would come out, and they'd go up to the concession stand, and they'd buy a couple of 32-ounce beers. And they'd come up to the booth and drop one off to me and take one back down to their seats and enjoy the game. So I had like 6 of them do that one night. And I'm calling the game. And Mark Schuster was the general manager at that point in time. That's how I ended up there. I sold Mark a condo over in Brookshire. And he called me at my real estate office and said, "What are you doing with your nights?" I said, "Kind of enjoying them, coming out to the park." He said, "Well, I fired my PA guy for smoking dope in the booth." He said, "Could you come out and help us out until I can find somebody new?" And 10 years later, I was still there. But this particular Thursday night,
right,
6 different beers. I've got 6 32-ounce beers sitting in front of me on my counter, with a microphone in front of me like you guys. And Mark walks into the room and he sees it and he says, "Ted, do me a favor, stop by my office when the game is over." And so I stopped by the office. He said, "Look, I'm not going to tell you can't have beers while you're working." He said, "But I can't walk in there and see you with 200 ounces of beer in front of you when you." I said, "Did I do anything wrong?" He said, "No, but nobody else is able to drink beer, and you can't have 200 ounces of beer." So I did, 10 years of Miracle Games. Did 6 years of basketball, the Sea Dragons, and then the Florida Flame. Right. I did the first 5 years I used to fill in for Haney, Stan and Haney, and Haney was their full-time public address announcer. And about the 3rd or 4th game, their very first year, and I know BJ, you were a longtime season ticket holder, and I've heard you guys talking about it on your podcast, which, by the way, you can get by just Googling BJ and Bill podcast.
That is correct.
Wherever you happen to get your podcast,
that is correct.
I highly recommend it. So I get there 10 minutes before the game that first season, and I don't know if you were going the first year, BJ, or not, but that first year, nearly the entire roster was from Eastern Europe. And I'm there. I didn't
really get into. I didn't get into the Everblades till probably the 3rd, 4th years. Then
I'm used to doing. I roll into Miracle baseball games, and I've been doing it forever. And I just roll in 5-10 minutes before the game and start doing my reads. So I roll in 10 minutes before the hockey game. And I get one look at the roster and I'm like, "Oh shit, what am I gonna do?" Because I would have had to spell the entire roster out phonetically in front of me so that I'd be able to get the names correctly. Other than Tom Buckley, who was one of the originals and is still selling real estate here in town, every one of those names, I'd like to buy a couple of vowels.
I still got my Tom Buckley. Jersey? Bobblehead.
Oh, the bobblehead. Okay. Well, I'll let him know. He'll be happy to hear that. So I also did the first 2 arena football games here in town. You guys might remember. They were the Firecats.
Yeah.
Yes.
They told me, they said, "We want you to be loud and boisterous and have a good time, and you're not going to get in trouble. We want rowdy, we want edgy."
Right.
So that's great. So the second game, I'm announcing the game and I'm getting the crowd going, and they're playing Arena 2 football. And the guy running the lights comes over and he slips a piece of paper down in front of me. And he said, this is a friend of mine. She's here tonight at the game with her husband and her 10-year-old son. She goes, this is her. And he said, this is her website. Would you do me a favor and promote her website? Sure, no problem.
I know this story.
So
I do too. I know where it's going.
I get a break in the action and I say, so-and-so, she's sitting down in section 103. This woman stands up and she's waving at the crowd. Her husband's next to her. Her 10-year-old son is on the other side. My godchildren are in the stadium listening to her, in the arena listening to the game and stuff. And I promote her website, sinfulfantasies.com.
Yeah.
And she went to Riverdale High School. And I'm thinking, okay, sounds like it's a little racy, but that's what they want. And I'm thinking, the worst it can be is, lingerie, or maybe she's selling chocolate. No, it was like $19.95 a month. This was the early days of the internet, and she would do anything you wanted her to do. So that was on Saturday night. I did it a couple of times, didn't think anything of it. Tuesday morning, I get a phone call at 6 a.m. Ted, have you seen the paper yet? No, why should I? Yes, you should. Okay, I said, I'll go get it. They said, you're on the front page.
Whoa.
And they wrote a story about this website that was not selling chocolate or lingerie. So I ended up doing interviews on ESPN radio. I did interviews with stations out in Seattle, out in Los Angeles. Everybody wanted to talk about it. I think my favorite call was from Mike Veck, the aforementioned Mike Veck, who called and said, Ted, all these years you've done games for me and you do this for the football team and not for us? Because Mike saw it as an opportunity to promote his team.
Right. Awesome.
So the Firecats fired me, and then they called me and said, look, we didn't really fire you. They said, we're on a 3-week road trip. We still want you to be our announcer when you come back. And they, in the meantime, when they had done this story in the news press, I think it was David Dorsey wrote the story, or Glenn Miller, one or the other, and both friends of mine. And they reached out to, I was doing Bishop Verot football and basketball games at the time, and Miracle games. And they reached out to these guys and they said, look, it had to be some sort of a misunderstanding. Ted's our guy. They stood behind me 100%. Firecats, so I said, no, I think I'll just stay fired. And I think I was probably 44 at the time. Right. And I thought, if I were 24 and this happened, I would probably take it and run with it, right? Start my own little website.
Right.
And, you come here and then I send you out to all the porn sites, and I would take a cut for everything that went through my site. And I'd be retired now. But in the meantime, I just pulled the covers up over my head that Tuesday morning and I told my wife, I said, I'm just going to stay here until it's over. I said, I'll be up tomorrow morning and everything will be fine.
There you go.
I met Jerry Lawler. He was, and BJ, I know you know Jerry, the King, he's really big in Tennessee and Memphis,
Yeah, he had his own wrestling association.
But also announcer for WWE, WWF before that. And Jerry's in and out of Fort Myers on a regular basis, and he knew all about it. And he autographed his book for me, and he says, to my fellow fan of puppies, my fellow puppy fan, because he used to call the female wrestlers, oh, she's got great puppies. And he signed it and knew all about Sinful Fantasies, and he wrote that on his book. So
oh man,
somehow, I said, I think when I texted you about doing this, I said people are very nervous when they hand me a live microphone, and now you know why. So,
and I wonder if that website's still in existence. Maybe we
no, it was gone. It actually crashed by noon that Tuesday.
Awesome.
It turns out it was the team trying to. Because they rented space from back then. It was Tico Arena,
right?
And they paid Tico Arena to play football there, as opposed to the Everblades, who, the people that own the arena also own the Everblades.
Right. So
that's what the Firecat people wanted, was to do that. And they figured, if we can get some bad press for it was the arena people. If we could get some bad press for the Firecat people, we can go ahead and own the football team as well. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. And I did not go back and do any more football games. And when they won the Arena 2 League, I did not get a ring, sadly. I would have if I had done that. The last 12 years, it's been the Boston Red Sox. I've been doing spring training out at JetBlue Park since they opened in March of 2012, and I love that. It's I get the best seat in the house. It's a mini Fenway Park. It's built to look just like Fenway Park when you go inside. We've got the original green monster out in left field. My wife, you guys know, is a defense attorney. All of the attorneys downtown are not happy that the Red Sox play at JetBlue Park. They were much happier when they played at City of Palms Park because you could take a 2-hour lunch, walk to the stadium from downtown,
right.
Have a hot dog, a couple of beers, watch 5 or 6 innings of baseball, and get back to work in time to go to court. And it's an all-day event when you go out to JetBlue Park. So, but we enjoy that. I was actually on the VIP tour when they opened JetBlue, or when they opened City of Palms Stadium back in the early 90s. And remember, I said I'd spent 3 years in Northern Virginia. And the team that we would get to go watch play was the Washington Senators, and the story about who eventually became the Texas Rangers. And the line about the Senators, that was Washington, first in war, first in peace, and last in the American League. They were terrible.
I played for the Washington Senators.
They were terrible. You could have played for these Washington Senators, and you were only 10 years old. They played at RFK Stadium. They did not even open the upper deck. There weren't enough people to open the upper deck, but they sold tickets. So you could buy a ticket. It was like 75 cents. And all summer long, we'd go in and we'd buy 75-cent tickets for up in the upper deck and just go sit wherever you want. So we would sit, the home team dugout was first base. So we'd sit behind the first base dugout, and their manager was Ted Williams. And we would talk to Ted Williams all night. And I loved him, the greatest hitter ever for my money. Not my favorite player ever, that would be Mickey Mantle, but Ted Williams, high up on that list. And we would talk to him all night, all summer, talking to him, just harassing him, this, that, and the other, talking to this. And he was always as nice as could be, despite his reputation for being a little ornery and persnickety and almost curmudgeonly, much like us. And so that was 3 years. So they do the grand opening and the VIP tour of City of Palms Park in Fort Myers. They take us through, and they go down, and we get to go down into the clubhouse. And sitting on a stool in the clubhouse, he's obviously still alive because it wasn't just his head, was Ted Williams. And I walked up, shook his hand, and introduced myself. I said, "You may not remember me." I said, "But for 3 years when you were managing the Senators, we used to sit behind the first base dugout and talk to you all night long." And he looked at me and he goes, "I remember you, little bastards." I said, "Well, you didn't call us that back then, and we appreciate that." So that's my Ted Williams. That's one of my Ted Williams stories. Are we wrapping?
We are. It's getting down to the time. Actually, we're well over time, but it's been.
I was going to say
talking.
we're in overtime mode.
We're in overtime,
man,
but
I don't even get to tell you how I proposed to my wife on top of Alcatraz. I better come back sometime.
You better, yeah, you better. There's enough stories to last for another 3 hours here for sure.
You know what? Maybe you should be doing your own podcast, the Ted Fitzgeorge podcast.
Because I need some more work to do. I got to go out and sell some houses.
Well, okay.
I got to go out and sell some houses.
All right.
But, I am here anytime you guys need me, and I wish you all the best with your podcast. I'm very, very proud of the fact that we can all still be together after all these years, and still get along. This is, husbands and wives can't do that usually, but look at the three of us.
Here we are.
Now I need you to do this before we leave, though. As we close out the podcast, I have a little phrase that I always close out the podcast. But I remember you on Orange 107. You had your phrase. Let us hear it. Give it to us one time. Come on, let's go for it.
You're listening to Orange 107 FM, Southwest Florida's home of real rock and roll, baby. Yeah, they stole that from WRIF in Detroit, a guy named Arthur Penhallow.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing new in radio, as you guys know. So.
No.
Anyway, I wish you all the luck in the world. I love that we stay in touch. We don't need Facebook. We don't need Instagram. We have telephones. And Bill, I will be back up this fall for games, and we'll make sure that we get together in Gainesville because that's my retirement town too.
Awesome.
Go
that
Gators.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
All right.
All right, everybody. Have yourself a great week, everybody. We appreciate our guest, Ted Fitzgeorge. We will have him back for sure. But until next week, stay safe. And now it's just time for BJ to say,
see ya.